Alien 3 is one of the most controversial entries in the franchise, plagued by studio interference, rewrites, and scrapped ideas, with over 10 different scripts before production. The director's cut, assembly cut, restores much of David Fincher's original vision, making it a far more coherent film compared to the theatrical version. While it remains divisive, it's a bleak, nihilistic take on survival horror. Before we get into the film itself, it's important to acknowledge that Alien 3 was almost a completely different movie, multiple times. William Gibson's script envisioned a Cold War-inspired sci-fi thriller with Hicks and Bishop leading the fight. Eric Red's version turned the Xenomorph into an uncontrollable bioweapon, infecting an entire space station. Vincent Ward's concept featured a monastery planet made of wood, where monks saw the alien as a biblical demon. Eventually, Fincher was brought in at the last minute, forced to direct without a finished script, and was constantly undermined by the studio. His original vision was much darker, rawer, and more psychological, which the director's cut restores in key ways. The film opens in the most devastating way possible. The escape pod from Aliens crashes on Fury 161, a desolate prison planet. Ripley is the sole survivor, with Newt, Hicks, and Bishop all dead before the movie even begins. This alone alienated many fans who were invested in the previous film's survivors. Fury 161 itself is a grimy, industrial wasteland, populated by a group of violent, all-male prisoners who have adopted a religious, monastic way of life. Unlike the well-equipped Marines from Aliens, these men have no weapons, just a few tools and makeshift torches. This immediately shifts the tone back to survival horror, where the prisoners are trapped in a hellish nightmare with no way out. One of the biggest additions in the director's cut is a clearer explanation of how the queen embryo got inside Ripley. The super facehugger design, unique in having both warrior and queen traits, suggests that Weyland-Yutani's ultimate goal was to use Ripley as a host for a queen all along. The other major change in the director's cut is how the Xenomorph runner is born. In the director's cut, it bursts from an ox, making for a more visually disturbing and slow transformation. The runner Xenomorph is a faster, more agile version of the creature, able to run on all fours and move through the prison's vents with terrifying speed. Its brownish color, lack of biomechanical parts, and more organic design separate it from previous xenomorphs, making it feel like an entirely new threat. Unlike the tough colonial Marines in Aliens, the prisoners on Fury 161 are untrained, unstable, and divided. Some are cowardly, some are violent, and most don't trust Ripley at all. However, when the Xenomorph starts slaughtering them one by one, they are forced to work together, making for a desperate, doomed survival story. Ripley once again becomes the reluctant leader, but this time, she's facing certain death. The director's cut expands the prisoner characters, making them more complex rather than just faceless victims. The horror shifts from physical survival to psychological dread. Ripley knows she's already dead and must choose how to die. In the film's final act, the prisoners sacrifice themselves in a desperate plan to trap the xenomorph in molten lead. Dylan holds off the alien, demanding Ripley pour hot lead on them both. The xenomorph emerges, burned but still alive, only for Ripley to cool it with sprinklers, causing it to explode. The final gut punch is Ripley's self-sacrifice. Instead of allowing the company to experiment on the queen embryo inside her, she chooses to die on her terms, diving into the furnace. In the theatrical cut, the queen bursts from her chest mid-fall, and she holds it back in a final act of defiance. The director's cut removes this, making her death more ambiguous and somber. When Alien 3 was released, it was heavily criticized for killing off Hicks and Newt, undoing the emotional ending of Aliens. Fans expected another high-octane sequel, but instead got a slow, bleak, and tragic horror film. However, over time, the director's cut has gained appreciation for being a true return to survival horror, offering a meditative, almost Shakespearean end to Ripley's journey. While not as beloved as its predecessors, it's far better than its reputation suggests, especially with the restored footage. The director's cut vastly improves Alien 3, making it a more complete, emotionally resonant story. While it will always be controversial, it deserves respect for its bold, uncompromising vision and haunting atmosphere.